Hello, welcome to the Regal Gentleman YouTube channel. My name is Tariq from Avenue Mill Grooming down in Cardiff. I'm here today with Aaron and we're going to crack on and give him a haircut. So, what are you thinking of having done then today?
Just like skin fade, tidy up this monstrosity.
Yeah? So obviously you've got a bit of an undercut,
Yeah.
as we can see. So you want to just fade all this in nicely into a skin fade. And then you want to kind of keep this in this like kind of twisted, natural curly state, but just tidy it up a bit, yeah?
Please, yeah.
Okay then, so what I'm gonna probably do is tie it up in a bobble, tie it back. Yeah, you've had to go at doing this yourself, or your missus, or someone's had to go at doing this, I think you said. So I'm gonna probably just neaten up the line here, going all the way around, and then just do quite a nice like low fade so you have a bit of contrast. So it's like not too harsh, you know, so it kind of drops down gradually into a skin fade. Yeah, and then we'll crack on with the top also.
Nice.
Cool. How long have you been growing it for?
About 5 years now. I don't know. So I'm 35, so since 28, to be honest.
So you had dreadlocks before?
I had like when it was about this length, I got twists that
Yeah.
supposed to go to dreads, and then
But it just kind of just dwindled out a bit, did it?
it's too much maintenance.
Cool, so I've tied it all up, now I'm back. So I'm just gonna make sure this line is as neat as possible, combing all the hair down first before I do any cutting or put any clippers to it. Actually, since we've tied it back now, it's quite a nice line. It's not as bad as one I first thought. So again, just combing all the hair down, just in a direction, facing down, ready for me to put in my zero guideline. What about the beard? Do you do anything with the beard, or do you want to leave that?
Shape up, really.
Just shape it up, yeah?
Shape up.
Do you want me to fade the beard in also, so it kind of comes down to a fade here, then kind of fades back up into the beard, if that makes sense, and then just tied it up for you as well, yeah? Cool. Okay, now I'm just gonna go down to my zero. I'm not going to go straight in with the detailer. I'm just going to use the zero on the clipper first. Start making that zero line going around. So this is going to be my guideline for the skin fade. Just working nice and neat. And then I'm going to remove this here afterwards with the detailer or trimmer. And then I'm going to use the mirror to check my balance in the fade so I can keep my guidelines nice and neat from side A to side B. And again, just follow it around. The same technique, nice and firm, leaving this here underneath, which I'm going to remove with the detailer. This helps make the fade softer and refrains from making any harder lines. Do you ever have the foil shaver on your hair? Do you know that, to take it down right down to the skin, or does it react bad with your skin?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. Sometimes you can give a bit of a bad reaction and give you ingrown hairs, but I always tend to ask the client first, dropping it down at the back and joining it up. Just making sure everything's as even as possible. This is our guideline. Now I'm going to use my trimmer and my detailer and just remove this here underneath now, just to take it right down to the skin. Just removing our hair and then just flicking out, being careful not to make a harder zero line. So just working underneath just to make the fade nice and soft and seamless. Again, nice and firm lower, and as I come closer to my zero line with the clippers, I'm just flicking out. Just brushing down the skin so I can see what I'm doing, removing the hair. When it comes to like little areas like around the neck, I'm just stretching the skin out, just so I don't nick the client. Like I said, just being careful where the skin gets soft. Just stretching the skin out slightly. to the other side. And there we go, we have our zero line put in, our guideline down to the skin. And now obviously I want to give this some nice graduation, so I've decided that the highest point I'm going to go to is going to be a 1.5, and then I'm going to descend down into my 0. So I've got my 1.5 guard on now. Just working up nice and firm to the line, being careful not to cut into the hair that we've separated and pulled up for the disconnection. Like I said, being careful that we don't cut into the disconnection. And as this Afro hair grows in different directions, it curls also, so I'm moving my clippers in different directions also to combat that. As you can see, I'm coming against the hair growth. Just being sure that I collect all the hair I need to cut. Comb the hair down, nice and firm. Being careful not to cut into our disconnection. Again, moving in different directions. And the hair is trying to grow, always trying to come against the grain. Okay, so now what I'm going to do with my number 1 guard, I'm going to make another guideline just above the 0 and below the 1.5. Then I'm going to work down to a 0.5 and then to a 0.25, working through the guard to knock out that 0 line. Then I'm going to work up and blend the number 1 into our 1.5. So just working over that 0 line, not going too high, leaving us some space to work with to graduate up into the 1.5 guard. Working nice and firm over the 0 line and then flicking off the head as we move up. Slightly angling my clippers towards the front here, as I want to give ourselves a nice outline here. So not massively, I'm going to leave it just slightly darker so we get a bit of a stronger outline at the front. And if you wanted to make it a soft outline, you would just hold your clippers at this angle, just so you take the fade upwards and then leaves you with a softer finish. Same again on this side, using my number 1 guard. And onto the back, just connect it in. Okay, now I'm going to move down to my 0.5 guard and work over the 0 line, but underneath our number 1 guideline. So really focusing now on that 0 line. As you can see, it's already starting to get softer. The line's getting more faint. Again, nice and firm over the line and then flicking off. Then I'll remove my 0.5 guard, then just open my clippers halfway. So essentially we're at like a 0.25, and then just really focusing on rubbing out that the fade line now that we have left from the 0. Just working through the guard from the 0.5 halfway down, even back to our 0, just to eradicate that 0 line completely. Then we'll work upwards to finish off the fade. Okay, so now we've moved down from our number 1 guideline, moved backward down to the 0 line and knocked that out. Now I'm just going to blend in the number 1 up into the 1.5 guard that we used. So I'm going to put on my number 1 and then open up the lever all the way. And then I'll just work over that gradually fade in 1 line, just up into our 1.5. Using just the corner of the clipper in tight spots. So instead of going all the way in and making lines or taking away from our disconnection, just using the corners of the blades just to get in them problematic areas where we just want to rub out a bit of darkness, the dark patches in the hair, just to help work on the fade. So as you can see, the fade is almost complete now. I'm just going to go through my 0.5 guard and just do what I call refining. So any little areas of hair that I can see that I just want to remove, I'm just going to come through and just rub over it slightly, just picking out any little bits, any little inconsistencies, just to clean up the fade completely. Now I'm just going to move on to my outline here. As you can see, I've left a little bit of weight here, just so we get a nice little outline, just to give the front of the hairline some strength. So first of all, I'm going to work from the temple area here, down, sorry, the recession area down to the temple area. Being careful not to take the hairline back, just making it nice and sharp. And then working back here from the temple area, just create a nice arch. So with the beard, do you keep it natural underneath, or do you like it shaped up?
That's the idea, we usually shape around the jaw.
Shape around the jaw, yeah? Okay. I'll leave the beard to last then. And then we'll just focus on that. So as you can see now, we've done our fade on the one side, leaving a slight outline. And now I'm going to work onto the other side also. So again, we've done our number 1 guideline. So now I'm going to use my 0.5 guard, working underneath the number 1. Over the 0 line and underneath the number 1. Being very careful not to make any more lines. Last thing you want to do when you fade in is going past the previous number and making any more lines, and then you end up chasing the fade and you get higher and higher and higher, then you lose your way and then you almost have to start again. Just being very careful and conscious of our previous guidelines. Being careful to follow them. Notice I'm constantly brushing the hair just to remove any hair that I've cut that's laying on the skin, so I can see what I'm doing. Sometimes if there's hair left on the skin and you can't really see what you're doing properly, you can cause yourself to make even more lines or not remove something properly. So it's vital when fading that you use like a brush that can always remove the hair. So now I've moved from my 0.5 guard, work down. Just gonna go down to my clipper, say halfway open, down to a 0.25, same as we did on the other side. And just focus over that line. Being even more careful when we come up to our previous guards, now above the 0 line. Just over the line and then flicking off. Just making sure we remove that 0 line. down to my 0 completely. Moving through the guard, just working over the line. What we can see that's left, which is not much now. Picking out little bits with the corner of the blade. Okay, so now back to my number 1 guard, all the way open. And then we're just gonna focus on removing this number 1 guideline up into the 1.5 guard that we used previously. So just nice and focused over the line, and then bringing it out. Being careful not to go into the hairline or disconnection. Just using the corner of the blade for the tighter areas where the head slightly dips in. So we just use the corners of the blade just to get in those problematic areas. Again, leaving some weight at the front so we get a nice strong outline. The fade's almost complete. We've left a nice bit of graduation. I mean, sometimes you can do an undercut and just take this really high and tight. You could take your 0.5 right up to the line, or your 0 up to the line, but then you don't really have much of a fade. So we've given ourselves a nice bit of depth and graduation to work with, just so it's a bit more standout, has a bit more character to the fade. And again, the same as the last side, just gonna go back down to my 0.5 guard and just work on any little inconsistencies and just finally just soften up the remaining shadow on the fade. Okay, now I'm just going to move on to just doing my outline here on this side also. Looking from the front so I can keep in line with my other shape up I did on the other side. Trying to keep everything as balanced as possible. Just from that recession area down to the temple area. Keeping the trimmer straight to give us a straight line. Again, I don't want to make this too sharp, just giving it some strength. And then we're going to work back from the temple area, just creating a nice arch. So just connecting in the sides now, moving across, working over the line, and then flicking out as I get closer to my number 1 guide. So in between a 0.5 and a 0, so just about halfway. Working nice and firm over that, the faint 0 line now we can still see. Down to our 0. Now moving on to our number 1 guard again, opening it all the way up, and then just softening out that number 1 guideline up into the 1.5. Working from side to side, connecting it all in now. And again, just refining with a 0.5 guard, just making sure everything's smooth and transitions in nicely. And just finishing up with no guard on there, just working through. As you can see on Afro hair, sometimes you have thicker hairs, thicker texture hair. So that's why we need to just use the corners of the blade and just come in and just help pick them out, just to make the fade look even more seamless and softer. How's that looking so far for you, mate?
Nice,
yeah, good. Can you see what I mean? I've just left it slightly darker at the front and just give it like a bit more graduation,
nice.
Rather than just taking it too high and tight. Okay, now we're going to just move on to the beard. So the length on the beard, you quite happy with the length on it?
Again, you're the professional man.
Maybe just take it down just to control like the where it's kind of like curling up a bit, where it's getting a bit wispy. So maybe we'll just I quite like the depth on it, like the darkness on there. So I'll just fade it in here, maybe control some of the curls, and then just line it up, get it nice and sharp for you. Yeah. So I'm just gonna get my 1.5 guard and just work down with the grain. Here we have some hairs that's curling upwards instead of down and in. So what I'm doing by coming with the grain and coming down, I'm just collecting them curls and just help smoothing off this beard here, keeping the weight, but just tidying it up ever so slightly. And then I'm going to turn it around and I'll work up against the grain. Just here where I'm going to be doing my shape up, just to help it be a little bit neater before I go in with my blade. And also start creating some graduation here, working back up as we want to fade upwards to our 0. So now I get my number 1 guard, just open it up, and then just move. I've done my 1.5 guard here. Now I'm going to move higher and work up from my 1 with the guard open, down to my 1 closed, then my 0.5, then my 0. So now just using my number 1, nice and firm. Take off the number 1 guard, down to my 0.5. Closing my guard halfway. Again, moving closer and closer to the 0 each time. Then down to my 0. Until they meet. So now we have our 0 coming here, meeting from this direction and that direction. Just going to tidy up a little bit of the beard here. And underneath, just go slightly shorter with my 1 guard. Just help catch some of them curls, just to make it nice and neat before I go in with my trimmers to make my lines. So now we're just going to shape up the beard. Just working straight down, not going too into the beard. You don't want to remove too much hair, and then you have loads of regrowth, too much stubble. You can make the beard look out of proportion. You can see now a nice sharp line. Just remove all the stubble underneath. Again, stretching the skin. Working in different directions against the hair growth patterns. We're going to do the same on the opposite side. So again, my 1.5 guard. Just working down, combing the hair down. So we're just keeping the weight, but just taming the curls slightly and turn it around. Just working just over here where I'm going to be using my razor, just so the hair is slightly shorter in this area. And then here, just so we start the fade back up into the 0. And I'm on one guard, open it up. Again, working closer each time I drop my guard. Down to my 1. One guard off, down to my 0.5. And to my 0. Just going to line up the beard now. So I'm just going to come from the middle, just join the beard up from the right side to the left side. Okay, cool. About the moustache, do you want me to line up the moustache as well for you? Yeah? Do you want me to trim the length on the moustache down a bit?
Yeah.
Yeah? It's quite thick, isn't it? So I'm going to use my number 1 just to go over the moustache, because it's quite thick and dense. And I'm just going to start from just above the lip. Then I'm going to join it up from the beard, the corner of the beard. Okay, now so I'm going to finish off the outlines of the hair and the beard just with the razor. So just stretching the skin out. Working back to the line. Onto the beard. Remember keeping a good tension with my thumb, stretching the skin. Depends on the client's skin. The client has quite nice moisturized skin. It's quite soft. It's lightly oily. So I'm doing this dry rather than using like a shave gel or shave oil, which sometimes can stop me from seeing my lines I want to make it nice and clean. So again, depends on the client's skin. It dictates whether I would use lubricating oil or gel. But if I can, I try not to use it to help me get my lines as sharp as possible. Just stretching the skin out, moving the blade back towards the outline. Okay, to finish off the fade now, I'm just going to go around the edges with the foil shaver just to take it right down to literally below the skin, so it's nice and clean. Gives him an extra couple of days of regrowth, just to make the fade last a little bit longer. And just tidying up with the trimmer. Making sure the fade's nice and clean. Clean up all the neck hairs, making sure there's no loose hairs left on his neck. It's always important when you're wearing shirts and t-shirts. There's nothing worse than having curly hairs coming back over your neckline. So how do you think that's looking so far, mate?
Fresh, man, lovely.
Yeah. Just by having the beard lined up as well, just gives it so much more depth. Like it makes it look stronger as well. It doesn't look like so, you know, patchy. Sometimes it can look, when it starts to grow out, it can start to look a bit patchy sometimes. By having the hard lines now, it just gives it a lot more depth for it. So now we finished off the fade and the beard. We're just gonna go on to just tidying up the top. Like Aaron said, he didn't want anything drastic done to the top, so we're gonna keep the shape. We're gonna refrain from combing it out into an afro because he quite likes the twisted, textured look. I'm just literally gonna go around freehand, just cutting some shape around the back and sides and some of the straightaway hairs. You know, ideally, you know, when you're cutting afro hair, usually you would comb it all out into the afro shape. But obviously this texture and shape that Aaron has is come over a period of time of leaving his hair, just showering, washing and conditioning his hair. So it takes that process over a period of time to get your hair to look like this. So if we were to comb it out into an afro shape now, it would take, you know, days, weeks, maybe months to get it back to this shape. So we don't want to get rid of that. So this is just literally just trimming it up, tidying it, and making sure that, you know, all the dead hairs and loose ends are just taken away. Not really going into the curls or into the twist, taking anything away from them. So it's literally just going to be freehand cutting. Just putting the shape back in. Again, there's probably people thinking, why isn't he combing the hair out and then cutting it traditionally as you would cut afro hair? But that would just remove from what Aaron is trying to do. By combing it out, you get rid of all the texture and all these little ringlets that we have. And it takes a period of time to get that. So how long did you have your dreadlocks for previously?
I think it was only like a couple of months. When I say because we're supposed to have them like retwisted every 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
No, I missed it. So I was just like, it grew out to the point I just had like dreads at the end of like hair.
Yeah, so it's just like this and then dreads
so
kind of weighing it down.
I just ended up like taking them off.
Did you just cut them off yourself?
I ended up just like pulling them off, to be honest.
It just kind of melted away kind of thing.
It's too much. Like, the partner at the time didn't really like them.
No?
Nah. I didn't realise how much maintenance it was. I thought
yeah, it's quite a bit of maintenance.
Let it go, but
I think the perception is of people is that like if you have dreadlocks, it's easy. Like it doesn't take much maintenance, and like, or people's perception of other people have them is it's because they don't look after their hair, or it's just, you know, it's just matted together. Which may be the case for some people, but I mean, a lot of the time they are actually looked after, and it is a lot of maintenance to keep them going.
I would just like so I can get braided and like first I've been braided and then like for work like the calcium to be able to the traction and then
yeah, texture, man, nice natural texture.
It's just a lot of maintenance, so I wasn't expecting it. I used to serve a short hair my whole life, and then the last few years
you've just grown out of it.
Yeah.
Well, how's that for you, mate, as well on the top? Yeah, cool. Yeah, so like we said, we've got a nice fade coming underneath the curls now. Nice strong outline, faded down into the beard, nice shape up on the beard. And then we've just really just help Aaron maintain what he's doing with the top, keeping these lovely curls and the texture that he has on top. So yeah, there we have it.